Sports.
Welcome one and all. Nice to have your company on this Monday night. Another sports scene talk in to bring you in the aftermath of what was really a pretty dismal weekend all round. The Rams losing at Stoke, Burton losing against MK Dons. Not the way anyone wanted to mark World Happiness Day. There wasn't much happiness around in these parts on Saturday night. So let's talk about it. Former Rams goalkeeper and goalkeeping coach Eric Steele with me. Hello, Eric.
Good evening, Chris. I never knew it was World Happy Day on Saturday.
No, Dave Fletcher informed us. I blamed all of Saturday on Dave because he told us it was World Happiness Day and it was all going to be okay, and then it wasn't all okay. Derby lost and Burton lost. So, yeah, we've had better World Happiness Days, that's for sure.
Without a doubt. We will. Things will brighten up. The sun is shining, spring is here, the daffodils are out. We will be back, don't worry.
Well, yeah, because I imagine your Sunday morning cups of coffee recently, dare say, haven't been going down quite as nicely as previous weeks.
No, it's been really disappointing on two or three fronts. It's the thing that I'm trying to come to terms with is this group of players. We know they aren't good enough. We know why. We've got to get ourselves over the line and rebuild, reorganise. What I can't seem to get, Chris, is that there's just a lack of consistency over 3 games. If you look at our 3-game weeks, we've not been able to put together 90 minutes. We can do 45. Then when we start the next game, you think, right, full of enthusiasm here. We had a great second half against Brentford. Then you see the way we started at Stoke and you think, this can't be right. It's not the same group of players. So I can imagine the frustration with Wayne Rooney. I can imagine the frustration with certain players as well. So it is. There's contributing factors as to what's gone wrong in the last 2-3 weeks. I think Wayne will look back and think, what about decisions I made on selections? You know, we've gone back 3, back 4, back 3, back 4. So ultimately, I think Wayne will be looking at that over the next 7-8 days. But I think the players have really got to have a close look at themselves as to why they can't perform on a Tuesday or Wednesday. They get put in the team on the following game and they can't produce any sort of form that they have 3 days previous. So that's the frustration I've got, and I'm sure it's the frustration a lot of the supporters have got, and certainly the ones I spoke to yesterday, that's what they were saying. They cannot understand how these players, which is where we've always questioned Chris and said, well, are we good enough? This is why we had to get 5 loan players. So I think there's a lot of reasons, and I think they've got to be. Hopefully, I think that the international break's come at a very good time. I really do. You
feel it'll be a period of reflection for everyone involved, Wayne Rooney and his coaching team, on where they go now, and the players as well. Some of them probably need a much-needed break, physically and mentally, as Wayne Rooney said, arguably mentally more than anything else, after the run that they have been on. 0800 145 6161, our free phone number, 81333. Derby at the front of your text message, at BBC Derby Sport on Twitter, live on the BBC Radio Derby Sport Facebook page as well. Now we'll crack on with the calls straight away. I know I say this every week, but this is very much your hour. Eric and Ed spoke extensively on Saturday evening, and we have sport programmes in the week which are usually filled with experts and former players, etc. Monday nights are all about you and your calls, so do give us a ring. And on that front, we kick off with James, first of all. James, good evening to you.
Hi, fellas.
Hello, James. What's on your mind?
Well, I suppose first thing, I was actually quite angry after the performance on Saturday to come out with such a lacklustre performance in what was such an important game against Stoke team who had nothing to play for. I was quite optimistic in the morning, thinking, it's game we'd sort of earmarked for a result, and to be so poor was really disappointing. And I just wonder, part of me is wondering why are they so lacklustre? Why the real lack of punch and effort, and it's hard to know the reason why, really. They look a bit, like rabbits in the headlights, paralysed by fear, really. And I just wonder where that sort of fear has come from. And I suppose with that in mind, one of the points I wanted to mention is I'd like us to get back to more experienced players. I think that when Rooney first came in as sole manager, the thing he did really well was give some of the kids a rest, get an experienced team in, go right back to basics, a bit more direct. And I think that's got to be the blueprint for the next till the end of the season. Otherwise, we could be in trouble.
Experienced players, Eric, it is, as James says, something that Rooney did in his very first game in sole charge against Wycombe. Very much the experienced players came back into the team, and you wonder whether that'll be the conclusion that they all draw, the coaching team, when Luton come to Pride Park on Friday, get back to what was clearly, I know it didn't click straight away because it was a draw against Wycombe and a draw against Coventry, but you wonder if that is the way they're going to go now.
I agree with the caller. I think we have to go. I've been advocating the last 2-3 games. I didn't like the changes where all of a sudden, we get talked about that Louis Watson's going to play. If this is not the time to be blooding any more academy players. So I agree with the caller. I cannot understand on Saturday when we end up with Louis Watson on, Creswell, Bird, Knight still on there. We are back to what we were having last year, but we were mid-table then. I don't think it is the best time. I think I agree with the caller. I would really go back to the experience. But the problem he's got is he's at some of the experienced players, and this is the quandary that Wayne Rooney and the staff have, is you look at the form of some of the experienced players. Kazim, since he scored the great goal against Forest, hasn't looked anywhere near the same player. Waghorn has drifted in and out of form. Jozwiak, who you class as an experienced player, has drifted in and out of form. Shinnie in midfield. I'm going on to these are all our experienced players. My biggest concern, and I'll put it out to the caller and anybody else who's listening, it's in possession I'm more concerned about. Out of possession, I think we're still fine, albeit we've conceded second phase goal, but we've looked fairly solid. But what's really concerned me is we've just got no inventive play in midfield. We don't have anybody who sees. I can't remember the last time I saw a switch of play, Chris. The Rooney switch of play that we saw last year was a feature. Bielik, a feature. Now I know we've lost Bielik. But ultimately, I don't see any of that in our play. I don't see us breaking lines with passes. We had one great pass from Clark, a defensive player, who set up Patrick Roberts, who pulled it back for Louis Sibley. After that, your other one came from Nathan Byrne breaking forward and giving it to Kazim. 2 passes in the whole game that you go, that's what you've got to see. We were seeing more of that when we were successful, 6 wins out of 8. So that's where my major concern comes. And I think you have to really throw it to the senior players and say, come on, you lot, you've got 8 games to drag us out of this position we're in.
James?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think one thing that doesn't help is the constant changing of the team, but also the formation. It's one thing we criticise Cocky for. It's a new team and a new formation in each half, and I get it. The team haven't been performing, so we look for a magic formula. But I don't think there is one. It's just getting a solid spine, and I kind of think if at least 9 of the team, if we get Marshall back in goal, if we can build a platform and a spine, well then they'll start to know where each other are. They'll start to play better with possession. So yeah, I agree with Eric on that. I mean, what's worrying is it's poor on so many levels. We've started conceding soft goals again. I mean, I watched the goal back from Saturday, and it was basics. So yeah, I mean, worrying times. It's a big 2 weeks, and as a fan, I'm sort of desperate for them to get it, to get it sorted, to step up, and at least give us some fight, and.
Eric, on the way Derby are playing, and James mentions personnel, you both mentioned personnel and how you think that it is a task now for the more experienced players. But Eric, what about the differences in the Derby early on in Rooney's tenure, when they were more direct and they were very good defensively, part of the 6 games in 8, I know that was, last month, 2 months ago, that run really was built on defensive solidity. So have we seen a big change in the way Rooney wants his team to play over the course of the, 4 months or so he's been in sole interim charge?
I think there's 2 things.
Permanent charge as well, obviously he's the permanent manager now.
Yeah, but I think there's two things there that the caller's brought some good points up, and I think that ultimately what you look at is if things haven't been going well. Initially, he had his changes, then he settled things down, and that's when we had our best run. But the problem you've got is when we've all of a sudden think we've got the settled team with those experienced players even in there, where we've had Buchanan playing and Knight playing, and the rest has been made up like Waghorn wide, Richards, Jozwiak on the left-hand side, Shinnie and Knight battling in midfield. Then we went to Gregory, who's more experienced playing up top, and we got a decent result when he came on against Brentford. The problem you've got is when we then look to say we've dipped the performance and lost the game, Wayne's felt he's had to make the changes to try and change things around, and it just hasn't worked. The classic example is Sibley, who comes on Tuesday against Brentford, has a terrific second half, has a really good interview, understands that he needs to do more of the things that Wayne Rooney had spoke to him about, but we didn't see anywhere near. And that's where you must, as a coach and as the coaching staff, they must be looking and going, well, what happened to the Sibley that was full of fire, who was attacking players with a ball, who was going in behind? He never got anywhere near the box. The cross that went in at the near post, Louis standing 8 yards out looking. That's what will frustrate, and what frustrates me watching, and I'm sure it does the fans, that's where the quandary is for Wayne Rooney. He thinks, right, yep, you proved your point, you've come on, you've scored, now go and do it. And that's happened to a few people. That's happened with Buchanan. It's happened with Byrne. It's happened with Kazim. It's happened with Jozwiak. It's happened with Waghorn. You're talking about 4 or 5 players. And that's why Wayne's had to probably shuffle the pack again to try and hopefully get a formula. What he'll do now is he's going to spend the next 10 days reviewing the last 4 or 5 games. And I think they'll come up with a game plan to say, right, we're going to stick with the back 4 or the back 3, and then we're going to try and get in 8 or 9 players. As we mentioned, that's when we've been more successful, when we've had 8, 9 players starting each week.
Finally, James, how important is that Easter weekend? 8 games to go, but if Derby are to not get really dragged in, I know they're in it already, and Rotherham's games in hand make it at a slightly skewed table because they could be much higher up if they win their games in hand. But Luton on Good Friday, Reading away, Easter Monday. It feels as pivotal as it was when Derby got into the playoffs under Frank Lampard, when I think they went to Birmingham on Good Friday, 2-2 draw, and then beat QPR in the 97th minute with Harry Wilson's penalty. That seemed to get that season back on track. Do you think it could have the same season-defining qualities this weekend, one way or the other?
Yeah, it's massive, and we need 3 points in at least one of those games. We need to. I mean, we haven't won in 7. We need to just get a bit of confidence flowing. So ideally at least 4 points, but at least one win in one of those games, because 4 wins or 3 wins, which I think will be enough, seems a big ask at the moment. So we've got to get one. Got to get one.
James, thank you very much for kicking us off tonight. Enjoy the rest of the international break, and we'll speak again soon. 0800 145 6161 81333 is the text number. Derby at the front of your message, and at BBC Derby Sport. Going to Ian in a moment, but let's get through some of your texts before that. Tony says, why aren't the players doing what Rooney says? Just pass it forward and shoot. That's what he wants. I would get sacked for not following managers' instructions. Paul says, Waghorn has had a poor season and we don't know his contract issues. The loans have not been good enough. We're in crisis at the moment, and I wonder if Rooney's lack of experience will cost us. G in Chad says, Marshall, Forsyth, Edmondson, Roberts, Gregory have to start against Luton. I think we play too many of the kids at the same time. Friday is a must win. Paul says, we'll remain in real trouble if we can't score goals. We may have to rely on winning 3 home games at least, which isn't a formality. We can't get to the stage of relying on teams like Sheffield Wednesday, Rotherham or Birmingham losing. We may have to take those risks to score these goals. It's what Wayne Rooney's been calling for from his players, to be braver, to take more risks. And finally, for now, Steve from Stretton says 7 games and no wins with Keller Roos in goal. I don't think there's any surprise there. He does nothing to give a very jittery defence any confidence. Every corner or ball delivered into our 6-yard box ends in our goal. Quickly before we go to Ian, Eric, I must admit, if you were to say what has Derby's problems been over the last 7 games, I'm not sure I'd put goalkeeper on top of their list of concerns right now.
No, think about Barnsley. We don't come away man of the match at Barnsley. Terrific handling. He's made saves in games, even though we've gone under in certain games. No, I think I can see why, and there probably will be a call for Marshall to come back in. That's fine. I can see that. You want your strongest, your most experienced. So I think there's every chance Marshall will come back. I don't think Keller's let anybody down. I think there's been other players that have to seriously look at themselves in the mirror. I don't think Keller's one of them. So ultimately, yeah, I would fully expect Marshall to come back as long as he has an injury-free international break with Scotland.
Yeah, 6 players away with Derby on international duty. David Marshall, Scotland. Tom Lawrence is with the Wales squad despite not having much game time because of his injuries. Kamil Józewiak with Poland. He'll play, or he'll be in the squad against England, which will be interesting in a few days' time. And a couple of the youngsters with their squads as well. Jason Knight, Louis Watson with the Irish under-21s and Ted and Mengi with the England under-19s. Ian is next up. Ian, evening to you.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
How are you doing, gents?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Very good. Looking forward to this international break, actually. I think we all could probably do with a little bit of a switch off and a reset before going again. Anyway, what would you like to say?
I just wanted to talk about the takeover, really, and Mel Morris. I've read a lot of people on social media saying that Mel Morris needs to go and he's terrible and basically saying very negative things about him. And I just find it's incredible. I think he's done a fantastic job for us. Obviously, we're in a terrible situation at the moment, and I agree with most of the points that the last caller made about the current situation. But Mel Morris has done everything that he possibly could in the time he's been with us. He's appointed people that a few years ago you'd have never dreamed of us having, the likes of ex-England manager Steve McLaren, Gary Rowett, who had a very good history at that point. Then we had Frank Lampard, which just blew my mind when that happened. Philip Cocu, we all thought that was an amazing signing. Didn't turn out that way, of course. And now we've got Wayne Rooney. But all the chairman can do is put the money in and appoint the managers. What happens on the pitch, the tactics, the players, that's down to the manager and the players themselves.
So what would you say then, just for the sake of balance, Ian, and those fans that say, well, hang on a minute, the club are financially in a very poor position at the moment. They don't own their own stadium. The EFL have been trying to get at them with various charges. Yes, we know that Derby successfully won the 2 charges that the EFL levelled at them. There's one going on at the moment, obviously, the appeal. Yes, you could talk about the managers coming and going, but there's been lots of gambles in that time, haven't there, with certain managers and money given to those managers. Are you saying that you're not laying the blame at Mel's door per se? It's just that this is the situation that comes when lots of money is spent trying to achieve a dream?
Exactly. You've used the right word there. It is a gamble. We've spent an awful lot of money on some very high-profile people. It hasn't worked out. There's always a payoff, a financial payoff. And when we get a new manager, we have to start all over again. When we get a new manager in, fans expect us to carry on where we left off. You know, we got to Wembley this time. Why can't we get to Wembley next time? It doesn't work like that. Everything starts again. It's a complete new team, manager, ethic. Everything's new. So all that money, all that time, it's completely wasted. What we need is consistency. And we need to try and build an ethic. You know, Villa put all their chips in the season they were with us, and they were fortunate they went up. Had they not gone up that season, had we gone up instead, I think Villa would be in a complete mess right now. Now, unfortunately, we've been really, really unlucky with certain managers. I mean, we got Pearson in a few seasons back. At the time, seemed like a really sound move. It seemed like a person that had got experience and he'd done fantastic things. And that was just 5 months of bizarreness. McLaren, obviously, came back again. We thought he was the man. Gary Rowett had a good history. It took us all the way to the playoffs. It's just been time and time again. We almost get there, and we don't quite make it. And we have to build it all up again from nothing. And it's very expensive, and it's grating on fans. But you can't blame Mel Morris. He's put £200 million into the club.
Eric, this debate is always one that rages on, and there are those that are staunch, like Ian, are staunch supporters of the job that Mel Morris has done, citing the money he's put in, citing the the love he has for the area and Derby, and saying, look, this happens. If you put lots of money in and it doesn't work out, this eats you up. But we know there's the other side of it where fans go, yeah, but it's down to the owner and the chairman to make sure that they are fiscally responsible with a football club, and that Derby shouldn't be in this position where they are having to sell their stadium back to themselves to make sure they don't fall foul of FFP. It's why Derby have only been managing 6 loan players this season, because there isn't the money to bring in the permanent signings. So it's one of those that I'm sure when Mel's time is done at Derby, and it probably will be soon given his desires to sell the club, it'll be an argument that goes on and on and on as to whether or not it was a successful time. Because obviously Mel wanted to get Derby into the Premier League, and at the moment it looks like that is a dream that he's going to miss.
I think I would ask Ian the question of this, is that does he believe, therefore, then that some of the managers should have had longer as opposed to the shortism that we have now? The modern game is you do well to survive. It's 15, 16 months as the survival rate in the EFL. That's the average lifespan of the manager over the last 4 or 5 years. So unfortunately, that's what's happened. But all I would say to Ian is that would you then have rather seen Mel give some of those managers that you've mentioned, out, as well as the money he gave them, should they have got longer to try and turn things around?
Yeah, I would say a couple of those managers probably did deserve a little bit longer. Of course, what we all don't know is what's gone on behind the scenes in various different situations, the relationship between whichever manager and him. Those questions we'll never know the answers to. There's a lot of very strange things that have happened in Derby in the last 15, 20 years. Relationships, what did happen with Pearson? Why did McLaren walk the second time, the first time? The rumours about Newcastle, and there's so much. It's a soap opera. Derby's always been a soap opera, and we have been very unfortunate. Our 2 best managers in recent times are Frank Lampard and Gary Rowett, both of which were poached from us. So we have been incredibly lucky in that respect.
Well, it was 3 when you think of McLaren was poached. McLaren went to Newcastle. So you look and say, and he's still got the highest win percentage rate of all of them, of the last 7 managers. And you look and go, we lost him as well, where he was attracted to Premier League, as was Frank Lampard. Obviously, Gary Rowett fancies himself at going across the A50 to Stoke. So there's always, I've often said in football, chairman and head coach or manager, whatever you want to call them, it's a bit like a marriage. You never know what goes on behind closed doors, and you shouldn't. And I think that really, there's been a lot of things going on behind closed doors that we, quite right, shouldn't be privy to. But all I do know is Mel has always been fully committed, and to do what he's done, the money he's put in, you can understand with everything that's happened to him, obviously in his personal life with his health, as to why he wants to sell on. I can see that point. I just hope that whatever happens now, we do have, and I do hope Wayne Rooney stays in the role that he's in, because I just think we need to stabilise this football club. We're going to stay up, skin of the teeth, fine. But if we don't stabilise, if we start changing again in the summer, we're going to go right through all the same problems that Ian has highlighted in a very, very good way.
Yeah, exactly. And Ian, I'm sure, and Mel appreciates this, I'm sure as well, that no one is immune to criticism. But I think what you can't disagree with is the love he has for the club and what he's tried to do to push Derby on and get them into the Premier League. What about on the field at the moment, Ian? What do you make of things on the pitch? It's not going particularly well. 5 points clear of the relegation zone. Do you remain confident that Derby do have enough to maintain their championship status?
Yes, I agree with the last caller, and I think that the main issue that we have at the moment is the fact that we don't have enough quality, experienced players. There's only a handful of quality, experienced players who will put a shift in who aren't currently injured. We've got so many. I mean, these kids, these academy players are all fantastic, and they all will be brilliant at some point in the future. But we've got so many of them. We're asking so much at the moment. It's just not possible to put a run together, or even at the moment, apparently score a goal or win a match. We've got maybe 3 or 4 quality players, and I think that the damage has been done for a long time. I think the start of the season, Koku was obviously trying to go with kids, and we've done great. We've got some brilliant kids, but there's so many of them in the team that it's causing issues. But we don't have any option. It'd be great to play a load of other experienced players, but we don't have them. They're all injured. During that period when Christian Bielik was fit, other players were in form then. Jusiak was playing brilliant at that point. Now he isn't, and Knight is hot and cold. Sibley's hot and cold. Waghorn's definitely hot and cold. So we really do struggle. But yes, I do think we'll stay up, not because we're good enough to stay up, but I just think other teams around us don't have enough. We do need a win. I think one win and a couple more draws, and we will do it. We will limp over the line.
Well, Rooney wants 50 points. Whether he gets that remains to be seen. Whether that indeed is the safety point remains to be seen. A lot depends on what Rotherham do with their games in hand. Depends on what Birmingham do now under Lee Bowyer. And Big Dave at Sheffield Wednesday, Darren Moore, is looking like he's beginning to get a tune out of the Wednesday side. It makes it very, very dicey at the bottom, it's safe to say. Ian, thank you very much for getting in touch. Pleasure to speak to you.
Thanks.
Good call, Ian. Well done.
0800 145 6161 is the free phone number. We've ticked into the second half, so do get in touch. 81333 is the text number. Derby at the front of your message at BBC Derby Sport. Going to Kev in a moment. Some of your messages first. And a few emails we had this week, Eric, you'll be pleased to know the emails have been coming in. So,
the modern world.
Exactly. So a couple. Firstly from Alan in Matlock, who says, to shamelessly misquote Geoffrey Rush in Pirates of the Caribbean, you best start believing in relegation battles, Derby County. You're in one. I can never listen live to the show, but always listen to the podcast. I really love the chat between Ed and Leon Osman as well. Thanks, and keep on keeping on. Yes, all of the Retro Rams pieces that Ed have done, available on the Sportscene podcast. Head to BBC Sounds, and there's loads on there to get your teeth stuck into. Boy from Brazil says, I'd like to see Steve McLaren come in as a coach now and away from his technical director's role, but keep Rooney as the manager to learn off Steve. This, I feel, will help us stay in the league and kick on to next season. I do not want to see our beloved club in the hands of foreign investors, especially after the latest developments with Daventio Holdings. I hope the rumours I'm hearing about a local consortium of local businessmen are true, and I hope a certain Mr. Gadsby is part of this consortium. I'm not in the know. I just would like to see him come in and take over like he did last time. I wish Mel all the best. He's a true Ram and doesn't deserve a lot of the stick he's received, especially with his health problems, so all the best, Mel. Thanks for your millions and thanks for your effort in trying to take us forward. And a final email for now from David, who says, the Rams are without doubt, based on the past matches to date this season, very well qualified for relegation. They lack ability, commitment, fitness and desire. In my opinion, Rooney doesn't know his best team, and I mean team, not side. He's losing the players' commitment to play his way. Wayne has to remember the players at his disposal aren't as good as he is. They don't have his ability. I hope in 8 matches' time I am completely wrong. However, the next 3 matches, I believe, will give us the answer. We need at least 6 points. At three, I was about to amalgamate the Twitter handle and the email address there. That won't get you very far. radio.derby@bbc.co.uk if you fancy getting in touch via email. At BBC Derby Sports on Twitter. 81333 is the text number, Derby at the front, and 0800 145 6161 is the free phone number. We'll return to your messages as well. Plenty of them coming in. But we're going to Kev next. Hello, Kev.
Hi, how you doing?
Yep, very good, thank you. Far away.
So just a few points, like I mentioned on the group before. So the first thing is, how can they be so consistently bad? It's quite frustrating to watch as a fan, obviously. The other thing is, they seem to have zero desire to get in that box. Like, if you watch Brentford, I think we should really be looking at the way they played, the way they get 3, 4, 5 bods in that box. Whereas Derby, they just seem to always look for the sideways pass or even backwards. It's all very slow and methodical, and they just seem to stop in their way, and it's like they're afraid to get forward. And that's what I've been seeing over the last few weeks. Also, Rooney seemed to have sorted everything out when he first come in. We had that period of 6 wins in 8 games. Everything seemed to be working, and then they've kind of reverted back to Phil Cocu's style, which makes no sense, and it's a little bit confusing to watch, if you know what I mean. And I think the players seem a bit confused as well, because everything's sort of, they get a mixed message here, playing 3 at the back, playing 4, and they change it 3, 4 times during the game as well. And it's just, I think that's what's sort of going towards the issues, if you know what I mean.
Eric?
For me, I just think I take on all the points you've made. I think they're valid, but the one thing I just think we're missing is a playmaker, and I think that's where we went wrong. It's easy in hindsight, but we did say we needed somebody. We always were worried that anything happened to Bielik, where would we be? We now know where we're going to be, where we are. We just haven't got a playmaker. We haven't got anybody that sees the pass forward. We stopped getting runners going in beyond, and that's down to players as such. It's their mentality. They're not being held back. And when you start getting lack of confidence, all of a sudden results go the wrong way. You go back to being, I'm very safe, I'm very secure. We've got to get, for the next 2-3 games, we've got to really go back to what we had in January, early February. And that's got to come from the senior players. So I think, as the earlier callers have said, we need to get senior players back. Who's going to take on the playmaker role? That's the big decision. Because at the moment, the senior players, you're looking at, is Lawrence going to come back in any way, any form from when he goes away with Wales? Waghorn at the moment just seems to be not interested in putting his shift in for the club. So you're talking about experienced players that would have been part of it. That's my biggest concern, is what you've said about we don't get enough players in the box. We did against Brentford. Then what happened? For some reason, why do we not do it again when we play again within 4 days? That'll be the frustration. That's my frustration if I'm in that dressing room. Why can you do it on a Tuesday night, but you can't do it on a Saturday? And that's the reason why we are where we are. There was nowhere near the commitment to get forward on Saturday, and they were there for the taking. They were an average side who are, 10, 12 points ahead of us. But we should have better players. But on the day, we just cannot produce. Second half against Brentford, we still haven't gone on to have the next game. That's what we did in January, where the side was more settled. So I agree with what you're saying, but I'll tell you what, we're going to need some really, really big performances. Players are going to have to step up. We can have a go at other things, decisions being made on formations. I'll tell you what, some of the desire to break your neck to get in the box. We saw it against Brentford. We didn't see it on Saturday. Now that's down to players' mentality, attitude. And that's what would really worry me going into the last 8 games.
Kev?
Yeah, so pretty much hit the nail on the head there, because that's exactly what I was thinking as well, as in, that consistency and that desire. And it just seems to be exactly that. They just don't seem to want to get in that box. And it's confusing because if you watch the training clips at Moor Farm, they all seem to be breaking their necks and they look really good. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's going to be quite a positive game. And then, you can tell within the first 5 minutes of the game starting that, they've just breaks on again. And I don't know why they play that way. You know what I mean?
That's a good point, Eric, isn't it? Because you watch them train. I know training's very different, and you hear Rooney in his pre-match press conferences where he says, I'm telling the players to be braver. I want them to take risks. We're working on it. You see the second half against Brentford and you think, there you go. And that's where it is a head-scratcher, because there's no way that... And I know some fans feel that Wayne Rooney is a little bit too worried about the opposition. But in Rooney's mind, I'm sure he's not telling the players to be, he's not telling the players to go out and not to be energetic and don't take. He must be giving these messages to the players. Is it now being too complicated? Does he have to completely go back to basics as he did?
No, I don't think it's complicated. I don't think Wayne's ever complicated the game. I think what he said is he's wanted in the final third, he wants more people getting in the box. He wants people that when the ball goes wide, he wants us to have a midfield player getting in there. He wants to see when he plays the 2 strikers. It happened where Kazim and Gregory combined really well. Gregory got his goal against Brentford. Kazim took somebody else on a run away from there. We haven't seen enough of that. That's probably why he's got to go to the 2 up top when we've got to win games now. When he's gone back to the other way, where we'll leave Kazim on his own, we don't have the midfield players that want to get in there and support. Jason Knight, unfortunately, who's been terrific for us, has stopped making them. I used to call them kamikaze runs like Craig Bryson. But I can't remember the last time he did that. He got there Saturday, second half, late on. You're thinking, go on. And he set the cross up and it just evaded everybody, unfortunately. Shinnie was in the box then. That's what you've got to see. I think the worrying aspect is that Wayne and the staff naturally are going to look at the training and it's filmed, etc. But at the moment, normally, if you can't transfer a training ground onto the field, it's to do with confidence. It's to do with who wants to really grab the chance, who's going to take the risk, and especially at home. We've got enough defensively. Our defensive record's fine. It's the forward play. It's the seeing that run, breaking the lines with a pass. And I agree with the caller. We have got to get more bodies in and around the box to threaten the opposition's goal. Because If anything, if we do go the wrong way, it's going to be because we haven't scored enough goals. So why don't we go more gung-ho in the last 8 games? Positive mind, positive attitude, and say to players, look, if you make a mistake trying to play forward, I'm not going to have a go. But if you keep going sideways, I am going to have a go. And I think that message will really be coming across crystal clear in the next 10 days.
Kev, are you remaining positive? Are you optimistic, or are you fearing the worst?
If I'm being honest, the only reason I think we would stay off is just because the teams in and around us below, they're equally as bad. So if we don't go down, it's purely for that reason, I think. But obviously we do need to make a lot of improvement, like he's just said.
Kev, can I ask you a question? Do you think we'll beat Birmingham? Do you think we'll beat Sheffield Wednesday? They're the 2 games, massive home games.
It's really, really hard because it just depends which derby turn up, and if they want it more than them 2 teams, basically. I think that's what it's going to stem down to, isn't it? Who wants it the most?
Good point.
Yeah, and you do want... I tell you what, it would have been interesting had those games come slightly earlier in the run-in, because then I think it would have been massive. And there is a chance still that when we get to Birmingham, which is, 3 from out, and Sheffield Wednesday, which is the last game of the season with Swansea in between, it may be done and dusted by then. Derby may have got themselves out of danger. Birmingham and Sheffield Wednesday may have dropped into trouble. We just don't know. But I think we all feel really hand on heart that they're going to be big games. From what we've seen so far, that they feel like they're going to be big games, despite they're 5 games away.
Yeah, Chris, I think we've also got to look, and the caller made some really valid points again, is that the fact that the results have gone so well for Derby in the last 2-3 games, that hasn't helped. When they come off the field and they've lost to Millwall, that performance again was nowhere near the mark. They've come off, the results have gone forward. All of a sudden, we get 2 positive results from the people in and around us, and it hurts. Now, really, this is when, if they ever needed a wake-up call, the fact they've got away with it. When you've been giving us the scores, Chris, when we've been playing against Barnsley, when we've been at Cardiff, we're thinking, pennies remember, somebody up there definitely wants Derby to stay up because the results went.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, they've gone the other way. That's got to be the biggest kick in the backside to the players to say, come on, you're going to run out of games here if you don't get some performances in the next 3 games.
Yeah, and Derby still have that 5-point cushion. And I know it was hard to stomach on Saturday, but you'd still, despite form, would rather be on 40 points and in Derby's position than any of the teams, bar Coventry maybe, they've got a game in hand on Derby. But I guess it's still, Kev, that the bottom line is finally, it's still in Derby's hands. We haven't reached absolute crisis point yet with the Rams. They are still very much have the ability and capabilities of turning it around. It's just we need to see much more from the team.
Yeah, exactly that. I just think they just got to get forward. They've got to have that attacking intent. If they're just sitting back like they have been, it's going to be their own downfall, I think, if I'm being honest.
Kev, thank you very much for the call. Have a good evening and enjoy the rest of the international break. 0800 145 6161. Just under 20 minutes of the programme to go. Heading to Sam, who is up next on the phone. Some of your messages before that, lots of them coming in. 81333 and Derby at the front and at BBC Derby Sport. Jason says need a win and a draw in the next 2 and preferably clean sheets as well. Craig says struggled with poor recruitment recently. We need to look at Brentford and the poor selection of managers. We should have gone for Mick McCarthy end of the season. Struggles will carry on next season if we stay up as we have no money. Jeff, the problem is not the defence. The problem is the inability to score, which itself puts pressure on the defence. Swindlehurst Ram says, I agree with Eric. Keller has been excellent and I think the defence has been pretty good too. The fact we don't score goals is the glaring problem. If a defence hasn't got a strike force to make their job a little easier, then mistakes will happen over 90 minutes. There's not one player in this present squad that I wouldn't be sorry to leave the club. I'm seriously worried where their next win is coming from. Steve says the whole club from top to bottom is an absolute shambles. Off the pitch it seems we're in dire straits. Failure to pay wages, EFL charges hanging over us, and a takeover that became an absolute farce. On the pitch, we are left with a squad that is one of the poorest for a long time. Mel Morris must be scratching his head after spending millions to end up with such a team devoid of quality. It's great having an academy doing well, but you cannot fast-track kids to this level. And Gareth says, is there a fear the EFL have an agenda against Derby and the outcome of the appeal could go against the club? It's almost as if someone is determined to punish Derby. If that happens, could we be deducted points this season, or will it be carried over to next? Yeah, a couple of messages on the takeover. We've been takeover free today because of recent events, but the EFL appeal is the next thing to concentrate on off the field, and the latest run-in started on Saturday, and this appeal against the decision to clear Derby of breaching spending rules, and specifically the second charge, which related to the way the Rams measure the value of their players, so their amortisation policy. And as Gareth says there, obviously the big concern is whether or not a points deduction might be coming if the EFL win that appeal. The short and most honest answer is nobody knows. A precedent just hasn't been set for this sort of thing. The EFL have never challenged anyone's amortisation policy before, but the financial experts that we speak to seem to think that a points deduction is very unlikely. And given the most recent points deductions, you can see why. Quickly, Birmingham docked 9 points for incurring losses of nearly £50 million over 3 years. So that's nearly 10 million more than the FFP threshold. And of course, Sheffield Wednesday deducted 12 points, reduced to 6 on appeal, for essentially adding the profit of their stadium sale to the wrong accounts. They added it a year too early. So both of those offences are clearly more nefarious than an amortisation offence. Yes, you could say that should the EFL win and ask Derby to recalculate their accounts with a standard amortisation policy, could that take the Rams over the £39 million loss threshold? I'm sure Derby will argue, given the EFL signed off on those accounts at the time with their unique amortisation policy, that future financial decisions were taken out of on the back of that clearance. And if they had a problem with it then they should have said then, and it would have affected Derby moving forward. And it's also worth remembering the Rams, in their statement, said they'd be quite happy to resubmit their accounts if the EFL won the appeal, suggesting that they're not overly worried if they were required to change their amortisation policy. And you can see why, given the profit of the stadium sale would still cover those accounts. It would change things, obviously, moving down the line. Anyway, I'm sure this is being argued by both sides right now. Derby at the time said they'd vigorously contest these charges. They won the argument first time around. They're pretty confident of doing the same this time around. And a final thing to throw into the mix, if we're looking at recent EFL appeals, they appealed against the decision to clear Birmingham of a misconduct charge. Basically, the EFL and Birmingham agreed a business plan after their points deduction. The EFL reckoned that Blues had deviated from that, charged them, lost, appealed, and won, but nothing happened. No second points deduction. So I think it's based on all of this. The general feeling is even if Derby are found guilty, a points deduction is unlikely. But, hey, we shall see what transpires. Anyway, that's enough from me. Sam is next. Hello, Sam.
The next...
Go on.
Sorry, Chris, I just thought you sounded like the Chancellor of the Exchequer. That was an unbelievable summary. Well, very, very impressed. And all the listeners should be as well. That was really, really, in very quick bullet points, exactly what's happening. So I compliment you, sir, on that. You did sound like the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Oh dear, well, that's a worry. Well, we'll see. I mean, I can say all of this, but the bottom line is we don't know. And as I say, we can only go on what's happened previously, and we just don't know. But anyway, that is for another day, and we'll find out soon enough. As I say, the appeal is underway. Sam, sorry for keeping you waiting. Hello.
Hi, Chris and Eric.
Hello. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Still angry from the weekend, to be fair.
I don't blame you. We're here for you, Sam. Go on. What have you got?
Yeah, it was just something I've been thinking about for a little while, to be fair. It's something I thought had been a problem for a while. Might be a bit of more of a question for Eric, really, but I do definitely feel we're missing an on-field captain. We haven't really had a permanent captain since Keogh, really. And Rooney himself, obviously, but I remember in that gap between Keogh after the crash and stuff, and we went a mess. It was a mess then, and then we sort of picked up a bit when Rooney sort of came as captain, and then this sort of season we've never really had an out and out captain, really. I know we had Davies for a bit, but obviously he was never. It's been a while since he's been first name on the team sheet, so to speak, and I'm not really a massive fan of a keeper as captain in Marshall, and obviously he's not playing at the moment, so I just feel that we're massively missing a club captain really that can sort of grab the grabbed the game by the horns, so to speak. And everyone remembers how Rooney shouted at Jack Murray at that time against Barnsley last season. And you just don't see that. As soon as a goal goes in, everyone's head drops. There's nobody sort of like grabbing everybody, so especially for the youngsters, just giving them a kick up the backside, so to speak, really.
A leader on the pitch, Eric.
I think it's a very, very valid point. I think there's been 6 different captains this season, if my recollection is correct. Wisdom, Clark, Marshall, Knight, Kazim, Bielik. I don't think Bielik did. I think there's 5 at least. So I think, you're right. The fact that you want consistency, you want somebody who's going to be playing and who is consistent in his performance. But that tells me that also we need to have more of the other players stepping up. That if you haven't got the captain's armband, there's still no reason. I don't like the fact that when we're not playing well, I don't see enough on the field, which is what Rooney did. And at the moment, he's found it very, very hard that all of a sudden you lose Curtis Davis, who was brilliant on the field. He would get round people. He would demand of people. And that, unfortunately, they're a dying breed. They really are a dying breed, that captain's armband. I looked at Mowat for Barnsley. He was cajoling the whole game. He was frustrated that they couldn't break Derby down. We need more of that. We're going to need a lot more of that. I think you're right. We need somebody who would be there to stabilise and have that armband every week. It's been swapped around, and in the end, I think it goes against you. But I don't think that's stopped others taking up part of that captaincy role. And I think that really is what Derby need. They need 3 or 4, and I'll name the names that have to do it. People like Byrne. He's 28. He's an experienced player. Wisdom, Clark, they've got to do it. Marshall, if he's back, has got to do it. Shinnie has to do it. Richards, Kazim, we know what he gives us. He's gone really quiet. And I know he was struggling and did brilliant to even start the game on Saturday. But I think we just need, if we haven't got the captain, like you said, since Keogh, others have got to step up and do it a little bit more.
Sam?
No, I completely agree. It's you just see it left, right and centre. There's all the players that have had that captaincy. They've not done anything wrong necessarily with the armband on, but they're acting very much like a stand-in captain when the proper captain's been subbed off. You just don't see like you see Kazim was doing in the warm-ups and stuff. You saw all of that, and he looked like a club captain. But then we play him as a lone striker most of the time. So he's got lots to on really, because he's up there on his own.
The successful teams have 4. Yeah, the successful teams have 3-4 captains on the field. And I can go back to when I was at the great club, we had Edwin van der Sar, was not captain, but you had Vidic. Then you had Scholes. Then you had Van Persie or Rooney up top. You had 4 captains. You had Mike. If them didn't play, Michael Carrick would step up to the plate. Darren Fletcher would step up the plate. Unfortunately, when we are where we are, and you're playing younger players as well, they will go into their shell. They'll look after themselves, which is understandable. We need now the brave men to step up, do their job, and try and give 10% more to the team in terms of the vocality. So I think you made a really good point.
Sam, based on that, would you like to see maybe George Edmondson get a run in the team, because he feels a voice and has leadership qualities? The short time we've seen him at Derby.
Yeah, but it goes back to the formation side of things, doesn't it? You've got to move it around to fit him in. We've obviously got plenty of centre backs, but I don't know. Has he been? I don't know if he was captain of Rangers or anything, but has he got the experience, really? It's more of there's nothing we can really do about it immediately, but it's something that you would have thought would have been sort of top of the agenda since we signed Rooney, really, because he was club captain. You saw he was captain of England, wasn't he? So you know what he was doing. You knew what he was doing. And Davies was the stand-in, but Davies is now presenting on Rams TV, so he's not even around the squad anymore. So who's there as the main club captain, like off the field and and on the field, really?
Yeah, well, Curtis Davies clearly a big miss in terms of his leadership on the field. He was captain, wasn't he, before Wayne Rooney arrived, and Philip Cocu gave it to Rooney. Eric?
I think we're very quick to forget, because the amount of games that we have. We talk about, and we know we've missed Bielik, but I'll tell you what, we have missed Davis as well. Because what we had was when he played and Wisdom was at right back or Byrne, you had solidarity. We talked about the spine of the team. Then all of a sudden you've lost Marshall because of injury, you've lost Davis because of injury, you've lost Bielik because of injury. You can see where and why we have had problems with that vocality that we need on the field. So Davis was a massive... I see him at home games where he sits amongst the players, and I'm sure he will have an impact. But the problem we got is I don't see too many taking the message onto the field of what Wayne Rooney and the staff want, and that's the problem. And I fully agree. That really has to be part of the major part of the recruitment, that we get a captain as well as a player come the summer.
Sam, are you going to be shaking with fear for the next however many days until Luton, or are you going to remain calm, composed and optimistic?
Always calm. I agree with, until match day anyway.
Yeah.
I've listened to every show, so I agree with Eric mostly. I think there's 3 worse teams than us. Even if we only pick up a handful of wins, it should be enough. I can't see Sheffield Wednesday turning it around enough anyway to catch us up. Rotherham, not only have they've got all those games in hand, but they've got to fit those in the space of a few weeks. So they're going to be knackered. They're going to get injuries. They're going to lose players. That's a lot of games in a very short period of time.
It is.
Yeah, they've got a smaller squad as well, haven't they?
They do. Yeah. The one concern I have there, though, is that it's amazing what momentum can do. And if they win one of those games and then win the second, you just feel that winning run might carry them through. And the way Paul Warne, I'm sure, will set his team up, and the messages he'll be giving will be, go on then, go and prove everyone wrong. No one fancies you, lads. Go and get the job done. But we'll see. Hey, a lot of faith in teams below Derby not picking up points. But it could all still be in Derby's hands if they sort their own house out. Sam, great to speak.
Cheers, Vicky.
And take it easy. Enjoy the rest of the international break. Let me get through some of your messages then. They continue to come in apace. And apologies if we don't have time to read them out. One issue we haven't discussed, and I'm surprised it hasn't come up more regularly, is Martin Waghorn. But Charles says, I think Wayne shot himself in the foot by not playing Martin Waghorn on Saturday. If he goes on attitudes at this time of season, then he may well lose the dressing room. Regardless of attitude, you have to play your senior players above the kids. And Martin Waghorn is one of them. Just quickly on that, and just to recap, Thursday he was lauded by Rooney, said his training was excellent. He's not anywhere near the squad on Saturday. And then Rooney, in his post-match interview afterwards, says that he was not impressed with Waghorn on the Friday in training. Eric, he said his behaviour was unacceptable. Discuss. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you can see both sides. If Rooney has standards, it doesn't matter who you are, at what stage of the season, it seems like and feels like if you don't comply to those standards, it doesn't matter who you are, you're not getting in the team.
Well, he's done that with a few players where he's left them out and said, right, go on, then I'll put you back in. I mean, to be fair, remember Waghorn was left out for 2 games. He came back as sub, came on and scored a really good goal against Huddersfield, started the next game. There's got to be a reason why Martin Waghorn is nowhere near the form that he gave us 12 goals last year. So we have seen the inconsistency in him as well as many players. I think what happened on the training ground has probably remained private, but ultimately that would have made Wayne's decision. I think he's made certain decisions on what's happened in training where he's thought certain players done really well. He's promoted them up, put them in. I think that we don't know the full facts, but it's the last thing Wayne really wants when you're going to Stoke on the Saturday to have some form of confrontation or whatever's gone on with Martin Waghorn. I personally think all the players should be really pulling together now. Put aside your personal differences with the manager, the management, and really get on with the job at hand. You've just made a good point about Paul Warne at Rotherham. I think Wayne Rooney could be doing the same. Everybody's thinking we're going to blow this. Right, are you going to prove them wrong? I think that might be one of the rallying calls he'll be making. People will start to say, Derby haven't won in 6, haven't won in 7. Have they blown it? Are they going to blow the 5 point? I think Wayne will turn that around. And I think it's a good point you made about Rotherham, but I think Wayne can do the same.
Bit of siege mentality attitude kicking in.
Yeah. Well done, Chris Coles. I like that. I tell you, you are Coach Coles, Chancellor of the Exchequer and a coach. What a man.
You're putting way too much pressure on me, Eric. I'm just happy sitting here, turning up some microphones and letting everyone else get on with it. Well, there we go. That's the hour done. And it's the final talking before the international break. There will be one next Monday with Ed. I'm off. I say off on my own international break. I'll be spending it doing very little at home. But I'll be back with you a week on Thursday, where we begin the build-up to a big old weekend of Easter football with Luton on Friday and Reading on Monday. And Eric, pleased to say that you should be at the Medeski Stadium for that Reading game. Good to get you back out to away games. Yeah, it should be good. And thank you very much indeed, as always. We shall speak in a couple of weeks' time.
Okay, it went really well, really quickly. That's a good sign.
It is a good sign.
Well done, Chris.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.